JRPGs are well known for their engrossing environments that capture players and whisk them away to fantasy places teeming with mystery, adventure, and wonder. The ability of JRPGs to produce deep, realistic, and captivating gaming environments that players may spend hours exploring and losing themselves in is frequently the key to their success. Today, I want to talk about the craft of world building in JRPGs and look at the essential components that go into making captivating and memorable game settings. Hello everyone, my name is Fedro and this is cozyfeji, and on this channel we cover a variety of things such as video essays, reviews, JRPGs, and all things cozy gaming. Now, it goes without saying that I like to pride myself as a narrative girly. I love a good story and plotline in video games. For me, I am the person that definitely prioritizes a good story over gameplay. That may sound blasphemous to some, but for me, that's just how I am. As someone who loves reading, whether that be novels or manga, when it comes to games, I really do truly think that story is definitely important. And with story, that means world building needs to be top notch, or at least it needs to be really well fleshed out in order to make the story and other aspects of the game to really do well. And so when it comes to world building, there's so many aspects in order for a game to, turn out really well. And that includes a variety of things such as the setting and lore, the towns and cities that we find ourselves in as a player, or maybe even the world map design, or even maybe the religion that they follow and mythological aspects as well. So today I wanted to share with you guys a few key aspects of world building in JRPGs that makes a JRPG truly peak, in my opinion. Setting and lore. The setting and lore form the cornerstone of any excellent JRPG universe. Large, finely constructed worlds with rich histories, varied civilizations, and distinctive mythologies are a common characteristic of JRPGs. Every game environment, from Final Fantasy's medieval-inspired setting to the Legend of Heroes series' vast world of Zemuria, is meticulously crafted to envelop players in a wealth of myth and history. I think it's so heavily important to have your setting and the lore fleshed out well enough for the players to really immerse themselves into the game. When you have a solid foundation of what the setting is going to be, and of course the lore that goes into it, the plot and themes that are shared and explored throughout the game will easily follow once those two foundations are really made well. There are certain games that I feel like do execute the setting and lore really well. One of them being, of course, the Trail series. I will probably be mentioning that series quite a lot in this video because I do think that the Legend of Heroes series is literally the poster child of good world building in JRPGs. I think it's just done so well. It's definitely a slow burn, but every aspect and every intricacy, every character, even the NPCs and the world that it's set in has a purpose. And when executed well, the payoff is so great. I think what's really great is that when you really fully immerse yourself into each arc, especially like the Trails in the Sky arc is all about Liberl and that setting and getting to know all the towns within that, and then Crossbelt's really centric on just one city and the neighboring regions around it. And of course right now I'm currently going through the Erebonia arc, which of course is set in the region of Erebonia, and we're getting to, again, like in the last two arcs, just get to know all of the settings and the cities and the regions within it. I think what's really cool is that the overarching lore is just how there's an underlying upbrewing tension that's not just happening in one particular region but all over the continent of Zemuria, and we're getting to see that unfold and to see that all the characters come together to figure out what's the whole purpose of the whole tension that's rising in the whole continent. It's really fun and fascinating to see, and really done really well. Many people do credit this franchise to do world building to a T, and I absolutely love it. Not as well tight compared to Trails, but I think what it really was fascinating in Final Fantasy 16 is the whole active time lore situation. Every time you find yourself in the game, you can press the main touchpad on the PS5 controller to activate this thing called active time lore. There you get to flesh out more about the characters, the setting, the plot lines, just to know more about the details of the game, because that is a very story-rich game, and I feel like the way that it was kind of executed can be a little wishy-washy at times, but it was really fun nonetheless to be able to take a minute to just be like, wait, what a minute, what were they talking about? Who is this person? Where was the setting referenced to? When you click that button, you get a more detailed idea of what's going around in that particular scene in the setting that we're in, which I found really, really interesting. Also within that game, you had two characters. I forgot their names exactly, but I'll put their pictures here, who definitely go more into detail as to what's going around in the whole continent of Valistia and more information as to what's happening around them. And if you're lost or confused or need more detail about what's going on to the next mission, those are the two characters that will have the know-all on everything that's going down in Valistia, which I found always really fun. I'm definitely one of those people that if I'm not playing the game and I'm not in the mood to really just like go more depth into the main story, or maybe I just want to just like mindlessly grind a little bit, I always find myself reading some of the books or missing pages of things that you find on your exploration throughout the game, because I've always found that really interesting, because again, it gives me more detail of what's happening around the world, and it also just makes the world a lot more lived in, like you really are in this world happening right now, which I find always a treat for me. World map design. The way the global map is designed in a JRPG is an important part of world development. Diverse environments such as verdant forests, lofty mountains, vast deserts, and energetic towns are frequently depicted on these maps. The world map allows players to travel between regions and find hidden secrets and prizes along the way. It functions as a visual representation of the game environment. I think for me this is really important when it comes to world building, is that in order to make a whole continent, a whole world, you definitely have to have different regions and different aspects of each continent or each aspect of the continent, because it allows you to know that this is a very lived in world. Like in the real world, there are different parts of the whole globe that are different from each other. You have, of course, America and its values and cultures, and then you have continents in Africa. Countries in Africa, where even that in itself is a whole a hodgepodge of people, because they're technically more tribes that are divided into countries and whatnot. But that's a whole another can of worms. What I'm trying to say is that each different place has their own set of values and customs and traditions that make the whole world the way that it is, and that makes it beautiful, because everyone has their own upbringings, their own way of life, and their own way of how they view the world, which I think is really fascinating. And as a player, when you venture throughout those different worlds, you get to see that and realize how beautiful, or maybe not so beautiful, the world that you're immersing yourself in. Which kind of leads me to my next point, which are towns and cities. Towns and cities. Cities and towns are essential to the world building of JRPGs, since they operate as centers of activity where players can engage with NPCs, go shopping, and progress the plot of the game. In JRPGs, every town and city, be it a sleepy medieval village or a busy metropolis, has its own distinct architecture, culture, and history. And then, of course, even though you're in the game playing the main story and have your main goal of things, you're always going to be stopping down these towns or cities, whether to replenish your stock of health items or to upgrade your gear. In between those little lull times in the story, being able to immerse yourself in a town and get to know its townspeople is such a rewarding thing, and also again enriches and adds more depth to the story. Again, I know I'm mentioning Trails again, but I just love the series so much because it really does this so well. Is that each NPC does have a life of its own. Besides the main cast, more often than not, a lot of JRPGs or just any game in general, everyone else is kind of an afterthought besides the main cast that you're playing as. But in Trails series, everything and everyone is walking, breathing, and having their own story. After every story beat, you can hit back and go back to each character that's walking around the city, and they're talking about, well, damn, I really thought you can talk about to John or something, and he'd be talking about how in the last chapter he was trying to get up to nerve to ask this girl out on a date, and then you talk to him and after that story beat and be like, oh, how'd that go? She turned me down, but it's all right. I can, there's plenty fish in the sea or whatever. You're talking about to someone who's trying to talk to his son to get him to finally join the family business, but he's like, no, I want to do my own thing. It's just really cool to be able to see all of those characters live their own lives, have their own goals outside of just the main story. It adds so much depth, and it just makes you realize that those things matter, and it really adds more depth to the world as a whole, which I think not many JRPGs really do or care to do, but definitely the Legend of Heroes franchise is definitely an anomaly and really makes sure that every detail and every person truly does matter to the overarching story, which is such a refreshing thing to see. Exploration. A major component of many JRPGs is exploration, and players are frequently presented with dungeons, caves, and other perilous locations to explore within the game world. Usually full of difficult foes, buried riches, and secret passageways, these locations reward players for their exploration and curiosity. I think a really good franchise that does exploration well is the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise. Back in 2020, I first played Xenoblade Chronicles, the definitive edition on the Switch for the first time, and absolutely fell in love with that game. That is probably one of the biggest gaming worlds I've ever experienced, hands down. It is so vast, it's so huge, spanning both two big bodies of beings, I guess, with the Bionis and Mechonis, and they're both very distinctive in its own. The Bionis is more green, more lifelike, kind of very similar to what you would think Earth would look like. And of course, Mechonis is definitely all about the tech. It's more cyberpunk-esque and very techy. It's just really cool to be able to take the time to really explore every nook and cranny that both the Bionis and Mechonis has to offer. I kind of really wish that I took the time to really explore a lot more in that game, because I think what's really great about the Xenoblade Chronicles games is that they really do reward the player for taking the time to go off the beaten path and to see what the world has to offer, which is what I did in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I definitely took a lot more time to do a lot more side quests, attack more enemies along the road, and just really see what this world has to offer. And it rewards you a lot because there's so many other characters that you can pick up along the way, or just more story beats that you never got to really see flesh out if you were to just focus on the main story. I think it's really cool that also within that game, when you do take the time to encounter different characters, you also get to flesh out your main cast as well, get to hear more of their backstory and to see more of what they're feeling and their motives and their goals outside of just the main story, which I find so much fun. So that's why it's really important to take the time to cater and to care for those aspects of exploration, because if you just kind of do point A to point B, yeah, that's cool and fun, but like if you really kind of push the player to like, hey, there's a lot more out there for you to explore. And of course, linear games are fun and have their time and place, and open world games are just as fun as well, but I definitely do think exploration and world building adds more icing to the cake. Mythology and religion. A lot of JRPGs have intricate theological and mythological systems that give the game world more nuance and complexity. Mythology and religion have a profound impact on the world and its history, influencing everything from ancient gods and fantastical animals to epic predictions and supernatural intervention. What I find really interesting about JRPGs is, more often than not, this is a trope that I mentioned in my JRPG tropes video, is that a lot of the times you're out fighting God because, you know, God has made the way of life very hard for you, and you're like, you know what, we're just gonna kill him. Which I find very interesting. But besides the point, there's really, really interesting discussion that can be made about the incorporation of religion in JRPGs, whether it's a commentary of religion itself, of how sometimes, not all, but in some subsects or very radical religious groups, it can put people in a position where they're blindlessly following someone or something with the hopes of something better in the end, which at the end of it all could be a detriment to that person and society as a whole, or it could be a point of just the cast of characters wanting to question the status quo and realize, maybe this isn't the best for everyone. Maybe I need to do something to, break this endless cycle. On the top of my head, I can think of Fire Emblem Three Houses and how the Garrick Monk Monastery and the Lady Seros teachings is very embedded into the story and the lore of that game, especially with the cast of characters and how their opinions are about it. You have characters like Mercedes, who is a very devout follower of the teachings and just always constantly praying all the time. And then you have a character like Claude, who's just kind of very indifferent and kind of whatever about it. Whether it's beneficial or not to him, as long as he gets his end goal, whether Lady Seros has anything to do with it is just beyond him. And then you have characters like Edelgard, who says, screw that, I don't want anything to do with her. She screwed me over, burnt me. I have lived a life of hell because of this damn teachings, which I find very interesting. It's just really interesting to see all the different characters in there and how their interactions and relationship with the said religion in that game, and how it alters their course and their ideas and their goals and beliefs in that game, which I find very interesting, and again adds a lot more richness and depth and texture to the overall game as a whole. Environmental storytelling. JRPGs frequently use environmental storytelling in addition to more conventional narrative techniques like cutscenes and dialogue to provide details about the game world. Players can piece together the story and lore of the game by using visual hints found throughout the game area, which range from decaying ruins and ancient artifacts to graffiti-covered walls and abandoned communities. I think this is such an interesting aspect because sometimes words don't always speak everything for you. You just had to see it for yourself. I think when you're caught up in an environment where you're in a town of just abandoned ruins, you as a player and as a character, you're thinking, how did this town come to be? What is the history behind this? How did this town get to this point? It shows it's very desolate. It's been abandoned. It's been neglected. Maybe it was destroyed by an all-being god who just thought that the townspeople were too greedy or whatnot. You get to really immerse yourself in that and kind of, in a sense, create that story for yourself. Or as you explore the game and get to know more of the world around you, you get to know more of the story. Being able to allow the player to have that initiative to explore that, I think is really, really fun and a great way to expand on the story and world building that I feel like is a concept, an idea that can be overlooked as well. Character design and development. And last, a JRPG universe wouldn't be complete without its ensemble of endearing characters. Characters in a JRPG can range from fearless heroes and crafty villains to knowledgeable mentors and quirky sidekicks, all of whom contribute to the vibrant game environment and player experience. Now, like many other people, and I definitely do think that characters can make or break the game. If I don't love, not all of the cast, but a good amount of the cast, it makes it really hard to play throughout the game. They need to have some depth. They need to have something that's intriguing. Whether I relate to them or not depends, but I definitely do think if a character is fleshed out and taking the care that it needs to make the game good, I will definitely enjoy the game a lot more. I think a great example of a game that did not do that for me in terms of character was Fire Emblem Engage. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say, and I've mentioned this quite a time and time again on this channel, how much I detest that game. Again, like I mentioned before, I really do care about story. For me, if the story is not good, but the gameplay is top tier, it doesn't matter. The game to me is not good. And that is just me. And with Fire Emblem Engage, I felt like a lot of the characters in that game were not really fully fleshed out or fully realized. The story was very half-baked and just kind of decent at best. It didn't really encourage me to really want to continue the game at some points, and the villains in the game were abysmal in my opinion. They had the potential, but again, were just kind of left to hang to dry, which I just found really disappointing. And it just goes to show that the gameplay, which in that game is top tier and one of the best that Fire Emblem has done in more recent years, and especially the modern line of Fire Emblem games, but that story was just not it for me, especially coming from the high of Fire Emblem Three Houses, which has so much story, so much depth, and the richness of it, because there's such a huge cast of characters and all of them have their own different motives and goals as to why they are going to the Garymonk Monastery, becoming a military leader, whatnot, whatever it may be. There's just so much depth, and then to go to a game like that was just honestly jarring, to say the least. But it's so important and imperative to create good characters that the player can resonate with, relate to, or just feel compelled to want to play. Whether you detest the character or not, that in itself is actually a huge win, because you're like, God, I hate this character, but I still kind of want to know more. Having that is such an important aspect when it comes to world building and overall making a really good JRPG, is having great characters who are fully fleshed out and have their own goals, their own motives, their own drive to get to their end goal, which I think is really important and should be highlighted for sure. JRPGs rely heavily on world building, and the ability of their developers to construct complex, convincing, and engaging game worlds frequently determines how well these games do. Every element of JRPG world development, from the setting and narrative to the layout of the towns, dungeons, and world map, is meticulously designed to transport players to a fascinating world teeming with mystery, adventure, and wonder. Overall, for me, world building is such a huge aspect that I definitely think it's important to make a really good game. That's just me. Of course, it just hit, especially when it comes to JRPGs, but I know that not every JRPG is going to have such intricate world building like the Legend of Heroes franchise, but that's fine. But as long as the foundation is there, the characters are there, the setting, the lore is there, I can, you know, fill in the blanks from there, you know. But either way, I think it's just a fun way to just do a little deep dive on how important it is to have good narrative structure in games. And I would love to, I mean, I would love for you guys to mention any games out there or JRPGs that have really good world building. If you guys enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Bye.